Pixel Preacher. Pixel Preacher. Pixel Preacher. Pixel Preacher.
Hello and welcome to session 3 of our Introduction to Northridge series. We want to welcome you back by starting to get into some of the things that we really value here at Northridge Church. One of the things that we've kind of learned recently is the incredible importance of connection and community. At the time of recording this, we're just exiting. We're kind of starting to spread our wings again after a year and a half of pandemic where we were locked down and separated from each other, isolated. And you know what? We know what we learned is that isolation actually helped. By isolating physically, we kept ourselves safe. We kept those that we loved safe by not bumping up against them and breathing all over them and transmitting this virus. But the unfortunate thing is that we learned that we kind of do the same thing relationally. Just as we try to prevent ourselves from catching a virus or from spreading a virus, sometimes we do this relationally in that we just try and avoid people that could hurt us. Or sometimes we're so tired of hurting people that we just scale back and we choose not to interact with people for fear of being the one that hurts them. We see ourselves as toxic. That relational isolation is almost as dangerous as the physical isolation or the virus that caused us to become physically isolated. Do you remember the first time you had a job? Your very first job, you could start to picture the money you were going to make, the independence, and then you started to kind of experience the grind, maybe some coworkers talking behind your back, and your boss is just a jerk. And the dreamy imagination of what the job could be was replaced with the harsh reality that it was hard. Maybe you remember your first love. And that the person that you loved was just the sun, moon, and the stars. Everything in your thought life revolved around them. And then you started to experience their brokenness, their flaws, and you were disappointed. Well, the truth is that people are going to be disappointing. They're going to let you down. People are messy. And I know I sound a little bit like Eeyore, but I just want to be real with you. This leads to the question, why bother? Why put yourself into a situation to have a relationship? I want to present 3 reasons why it's worth embracing the risks associated with being in a relationship. First, it's good for you, it's good for others, and it's what God commands us to do. We were made for relationship. When you think about the creation story, we see this image of God sitting back and surveying his creation, his perfect creation. Each day he said, this is good. But the one tweak, the one kind of retrospective thing, he says, you know what, it's not good that man is alone. I'm going to create a helpmate for him. And he created man and woman, and they were made for each other. They're created for connection. Unfortunately, that same couple was the author of the brokenness of creation and that perfection. And that leads us to all of the hurt and heartache that we have today. But we see right from God's design that we were made for relationship. We were made for connection. There's actually an article in Psychology Today that describes, it says, this is Fagan from 2020, it says, babies who are not held, nuzzled, and hugged enough can stop growing, and if the situation lasts long enough, even die. We were made for connection. But that's not the only reason that you should pursue connection and community. It's about more than you. When you come to Northridge for a weekend service, it needs to be about more than you. You can serve and save and help somebody else. You can be that relationship that somebody else might need. You can be a blessing to others. Now, I know that this is something that causes a lot of anxiety for people. And for some, that anxiety is legitimate. It's something that is a really difficult hurdle to get past. But imagine if Northridge Church was the place where that was just normal. Putting yourself out there was just normal. It was an expectation. And so if you put yourself out there, people aren't going to be like, oh, who's this person coming on so strong? That's just the normal. We want to be a church where extravagant connection is the norm. Now, finally, and most importantly, if we want to truly follow Jesus, we should probably listen to what he describes as the greatest commandments. We see in Matthew 22, verses 35 to 40, it says this. And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Now, I want to pause there. I'm in the middle of that section of Scripture. But this idea of being in relationship and looking beyond yourself, it starts with our pursuit of Jesus. We need to throw ourselves into a relationship with God and pursue him and love him first and foremost. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. As perfect as he is, as amazing as our God is, you are going to have some moments of disappointment. Speaking as somebody with 50 years of experience, there have been times when I have prayed fervently to God for healing for somebody, and they haven't been healed. And it's one of those things I don't fully understand, and it's one of those things that can really torpedo a person's faith. It can undermine that love they have for God. It can hurt the relationship they have with God. But we are called to that standard of loving God first. It goes on to say this, and a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. We are commanded to move beyond our self-consciousness to love others. And let me just kind of be real with you for a second. I'm going through something right now. We are new to this physical location in Maple Ridge, and I feel like I need to make a connection with our physical neighbors. I need to reach out and build bridges with our physical neighbors. And I'm really struggling with how to do it, because I know that most people don't want to knock on their door. They don't even really want something left at their doorstep. And in my Canadianness, I don't want to bother them, but I do want to love them, and I'm called to love them. So I know that this can be a difficult tension, but we are called to move beyond the tension and embrace it. We have a bit of a history at Northridge of kind of keeping to ourselves. This can't be true about the new Northridge moving forward. We want to recreate ourselves to be a community that connects well. And we're going to say it like this: Northridgers at large will find a small community to connect with. We want every Northridger to connect with a smaller community. We need to make this as normal as possible. On September 5th, we are going to actually, or maybe this is in the past for you, September 5th, 2021, we're dedicating an entire service to making connections, to physically finding our place and finding our connection points in the church. And we'll be settling into these smaller community groups. So the question, I guess, is out there is what actually makes something a community? Well, the first key is to get smaller. We want to think smaller. I'll tell you, there's nothing I like more than to have to put out more chairs at a Sunday or weekend service where so many people are showing up that we've just got to find places to put them. That's something to celebrate. That's just something fun. We have a saying that weekend services are for celebrating with the people who showed up. The more people who show up, the bigger the party. The better the party in my mind. But when it comes to going deeper, when it comes to intimacy of relationship, it's very difficult to have that closeness with 200 to 300 people. We can't know their stories as intimately as we need to if we really want to go deeper. That's where connecting smaller, finding a subgroup of Northridge, not a clique, but a group of people that you're going to do life with and be intimate with, share stories, know what's going on. That's what's important. That's the first thing. We want to think smaller. The second thing is we want to be on mission. Our mission, as you know, is learning and sharing Jesus. And our smaller community groups should be doing one or the other, or ideally both. Now, one of the most common smaller groups would be a Bible study. Coming together and sitting around the Word. And that's a great reason to gather. And that can be a great place to have intimate conversations, pray for each other. And that would really be learning Jesus, learning about Jesus. That fits it perfectly. We have other programs like that, Alpha, and a lot of our kids' student ministries groups. They're really good about learning about Jesus. And that's fairly specific, but sharing Jesus, sharing about Jesus can be really broad. It could be anything from a pickleball match to fishing to a Bible study to coffee, whatever. Just this past week at the time of this taping, we had 2 staff meeting stories come up. And one was from a pickleball tournament where there was a connection, where there was a prophetic word given by 2 people who had just met. Another one was a story from a cul-de-sac party where the neighborhood, the block got together in the cul-de-sac and somebody felt safe enough to share some really intimate things they were going through. These are great connection points, and that's what we want for you. We want you to find your tribe. Well, full disclosure, I don't want to play matchmaker. Don't text me, don't call me, don't email me and say, Pastor David, I want to connect. Can you hook me up with somebody? I don't want to play matchmaker. This is something that's going to require you to put yourself out there. You need to take the risk. But the beauty is that we're going to be risking together. We're going to make this a part of our renewed normal. Church, we need to be committed to learn from this time away and come back better than we were. Community and connection are going to be foundational pillars of who we are going to be going forward. I hope that you've learned that about Northridge. Until next session, be safe and be blessed.